Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the worst baseball card designs of 1992. For 1992, this is a year that for me as a football fan, I always look at this year as a low point. Because in football, it really was. 91 was a much better year for card design, and 92 there was a lot of fall off, especially with tops. But over in baseball, not so much. Baseball actually was a lot better, and basketball was a lot better. But for football, that just wasn't the case. So when I sat down to look at baseball, I once again, as happens every once in a while, was pleasantly surprised and went, oh yeah, actually this is pretty good. So much so that there were only 12 sets of note, and for doing a best of and worst of, I can split that right down the middle, which means that there are actually card sets. Well, there's a card set that's actually good that ends up on the bad list because of the fact that I have it split down the middle. The middle is shifted for baseball to where more of the card sets were successful than not. So I got to kick it off with an honorable mention that is only on the list by default. It really doesn't belong here. And that's 1992 Donruss Triple Play. This is a good card. In fact, this is a card I would rank a lot higher, somewhere up above, at least above Donruss proper, for the simple reason that it's very successful. I mean, it does look good. It's designed for kids, though. That's the thing. This whole card is designed entirely around getting kids' interest in holding it, and it's very successful at it. The border is so bold that you feel like it's going to glow in the dark, which I have to note, because of these sets, it does not glow in the dark, but you get that feeling that it has so much vibrance that it could. This card stands out, which a card for kids really needs to do. It needs to be something that locks their eyes and pulls them in, and once it's pulled in, you need to have interest, and the images in this card set are built around that. Some of the images are just straightforward, bold shots that pull you in. Others are images that have enough interest that they keep you locked in and have you exploring the card. That's what a card set for kids needs to be. And then on the card back, you really don't need much. You just need a little bit of interest back there for kids to kind of play around with so that they can go back to the front. And this card is so successful at all of that. The only problem the card set has is it's designed for kids. It's designed to be flashy. It's designed to have images that are more the kinds of things you're going to spend time studying. That's not what works for older card collectors. For those of us who are well-tuned, we want to be pulling this into the system of cards that we're used to. We want to have all the information on the back that we want to see. We want a card front on the front that has a really good balance. Everything kind of pulls together and works in a very effective way, but isn't too garish. That's what we want, and these cards aren't designed for that. For a lot of collectors, they never discover Triple Play until years later to go, really? They made that? That was like for, oh, that was a real professional main set, really? Because it just isn't a part of our space. And it's not a knock as much as it's very specialized. So it has its place, it does its thing. And look, for me, I love cards in a complete way. And so there are very few aspects of card collecting and card appreciation that I don't get engaged in. So when I look at cards designed for kids, I immediately shift into that 8-year-old me and go, oh yeah, I totally get it. And I'm all in. I love it because I know how to shift gears very easily. But for a lot of collectors, that's not the case. And that's the only knock that I have of this card, is the fact that it's not designed to jump over into a serious card collector. But it's not much of a knock. So that's the only reason I don't have it in the top 6. But really, for what it is, it's one of the best cards designed for kids because it just does everything right. And you look at it and you immediately understand why kids are going to get excited about it. So that's the honorable mention, but we got to get into the bottom 5, and the bottom 5 kicks off with a card that I think is a miss, and that is Fleer. And that shouldn't be a surprise because, it's Fleer. Fleer has had very few cards that have been well designed, except in basketball. Basketball is the one place where Fleer actually did have a lot of success. In baseball, in the 80s, they had some pretty good cards. They tended to have enough of an innovation, enough of an edginess, that they didn't swing for the fences and risk it all, which Don Russ used to do. Fleer had that nice balance in between where you had a couple of really good designs that actually held up over the years. But then the 90s happened and that was gone. And in this card set, you can see that they almost succeeded. They have a really nice color fade, which actually is kind of a nod to the 87 set. And they also have a metallic finish, which I gotta say, I like shiny objects, and this definitely fits. The problem is it's anemic. So when you look at the image, that really big, impressive image, the image runs into the border and just kind of blends in. There's no transition. You need to have a little slight border on the inside to make the transition between the outer border and the card image inside. If they had that, this card could work a lot better. Instead, because the background fades into the border around the outside, the player inside kind of disappears as well and nothing stands out. Now, true, Cal Ripken Jr. is a bad example because a lot of these cards have this color for the text that doesn't stand out, and that really makes the whole thing fall apart. Whereas if you go over to Bo Jackson, now we're in a whole different camp, because with Bo, the bold color on the side of, black actually does a really good job of standing out. And it works with Bo, so the Bo comes out. You still don't see where the edge of the background goes into the border, but at least the player stands out. And setting aside the weird jersey, the rest of the card actually does work pretty well with this card, which means there are some cards in this set that work, and you go, oh yeah, that's good. But emphasis is some cards work. Most of them just don't, and that's the problem that this card set has. They still hadn't figured out how to make a fully rounded card. I don't know why, but Fleer, it was like they were adamant about the cards we make suck. That's what we do. And they were very on brand for most of the 90s. Again, except for in basketball where they had a couple of sets that really shone through. This one did not shine through. Even the card back, just, why? What were they doing? But enough about that. Let's move on to the bottom four, and now we're getting into tops with Stadium Club. And Stadium Club has always bugged me because I've never liked Stadium Club until 1996. That's the first year that I think Stadium Club actually made a good card. Otherwise, they had an idea, and they were going for that idea, and it either worked or it didn't, and I don't think it ever worked. In 91, it was all about this great, glorious image, which is great, except the printing quality sucked, so the images didn't read. In 92, they solved it. Now the images actually, they pop. They have such clarity. I mean, these are gorgeous images. But what about that border? And if you're going, well, there's no border. Well, there's a border element, and that is the design piece down at the bottom where you have the Stadium Club logo, and then you have the black box with the name. And that black box is stupid. Every time I look at the card, that box jumps out and it says, hey, just, I'm here. At least in football, they added a couple of gold lines down at the bottom. I mean, even with the members' choice cards, those also have something down at the bottom, which helps. It helps a lot. It doesn't solve it at all, but it does help. In the 91 set, that element was a lot better with the whole band that they had down at the bottom. But in 1992, just no, the box doesn't work. Had they gone with a Pro Line or Pro Set Platinum approach where you just have the Stadium Club logo, leave the name off, or maybe in gold foil floating, but either way, if the whole point is the logo, the card's going to look so much better. So much better. And I wish they'd done that. And then you also have the card back, which is Stadium Club card back, which means obviously that it just sucks. The only good thing about a Stadium Club card back is the rookie card on it. That's it. Otherwise, just no. This card does not work. Again, because of the dumb, stupid black box. Just, I don't get it. Every time I look at these baseball cards, I go, oh, it's a printing error. Oh, they didn't do the gold lines. Oh, okay. Yeah. At any rate, moving on from that, we go to next, Donruss Studio. Now, I am a big fan of the 91 Studio set. I think that it is It is one of the great cards of 1991, except for the weird raspberry color that they have on the border. It doesn't work. Had they gone with a black border, great. Silver border, great. What if they went with a gold border? It would have been great. They didn't. And sadly, when they got around to the gold border in 1992, the card sucked. Now, maybe it's a bronze border or a dark champagne, I don't know. It's almost gold. It's close enough to gold that I'm okay with saying that it's gold. The thing is, they now got the outer border right, but the inside is a mess. It's portraits. Donruss Studio. It's portraits. Where's the portrait? It's shrunk down. You can hardly see it. They tend to be dark. The thing you see is the stipple art image behind, which I get it. I understand what the stipple art image is about. They're trying to make it look like some old classic picture from the past or something like that. The problem is it dominates the card, so that's what pulls your eye in, only it doesn't grab your interest. It's kind of a mess, and then you have to find the portrait, and when you do find the portrait, it's hard to see it. It's just a mess across the board. They had to reinvent the card after this, and they would, but boy, this was a card I really wish they had just not done at all, because it's not good. But as bad as this is, we do have two more top sets to get to, and at number 2, I go with Bowman. Bowman I have a hate-hate relationship with, and that's putting it kindly. This is a card I never knew existed until about 1996. I ran into one of these cards and had to figure out what in the world it was, only to go, wait, Bowman made cards in 1992? Which was stupid. Everybody knew about the 89 set. Of course they made cards in 1992. But I never saw them. And that was because Topps finally figured out how to solve its value problem with Bowman. See, you can create cards that have value by one of two things, either scarcity or design. Topps decided that it would be better to go with scarcity rather than design. So they underproduced the 92 set, which created scarcity, which meant you rarely saw it. But that was actually a blessing in disguise, because if they hadn't done that, that would mean everybody would have to see this card, which is just stupid. It's so incredibly boring. I mean, absolutely incredibly boring. Whenever I think of 1992, the reason I think of 1992 as a dud year for card design is I think of this. This is the card that locks in my head to go, oh yeah, this. And then I think of Playoff and a few other designs spurred off from that. And then I have to get around to, well, wait, what does Ultra look like? And then with Ultra and Upper Deck, I start to realize, oh, there are some good designs. The problem is this Bowman card, I don't know, it just sucks. I do have to say that on the card back, the background, the texture, and the color, I think that actually kind of works. Kind of a weird point to make. But the only redeeming quality about this card is it is a well-made card with well-printed images that pop. The images are good. They're really quite good. They're not great, but that's what works on these cards. And that's the only reason it's all the way up here at number 2 and it's not down at number 1 with Topps. I really don't know what was going on with Topps. I mean, they had to have been making better cards than 1991, but they weren't. The problem with Topps proper is they took the 91 set and they decided we're going to upgrade it. First off, they chose a modern cardstock. Well, not really. It's still cardboard, so it's kind of like they shifted back to Fleer in the 80s and said, that's going to be our modern card. So it's still cardboard for some stupid reason. The card back is kind of the same thing they'd been doing, not really much of an upgrade. And the card design is a variation on the 1991 design. It's just a little bit simplified. So you still have the fine detailing, but you don't have the fine detailing interest. And the card ends up being an entirely forgettable card because it was never intended to stand alone as this was the card. This card, from the beginning, was supposed to be about the gold parallel. That's what Topps was going for. They were banking on everyone's going to focus on the gold parallel and not focus on this, which they were 100% correct. The problem is, this is the most forgettable card Topps ever made. This is the card where whenever I think 1992, I go, oh, what was that? I always do that. Man, what was the design? And I have to reverse engineer by going, oh, that was the year of the first gold foil. And then I picture the gold foil card. And then I have to figure out what it's like without the gold foil. And I forget about the team colors and all that. There is nothing about this card that comes through. Even the images are downgrades of what they'd done in 1991. In every way, this card is worse. The only way you could see it as being better is if you just hate the 91 card and you're glad you've moved on from it. Otherwise, this card is completely white noise. For me, it is a hole in my memory, and that's what it comes down to. They needed to do better, and they would do a little bit better in 1993, but this was shortlist for worst Topps card designs of all time. Again, if you can't even remember it, that's not a good sign. But at any rate, that's the bottom 6 cards for, well, it's at least the bottom 5 cards for me for baseball cards in 1991. I'm going to look at the best of at another point, and I'm going to go through the other sports and then do some wrap-ups with comparing all the sports across to each other. I'm going to do that later on. This is going to be standing alone for this. So definitely check out my other videos if you haven't had a chance. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you very much for watching.